Let's continue comparing the Hebrew Masoretic with the Greek Septuagint by going through the New Testament and seeing which manuscript family the writers used when quoting from the Old Testament. In this video, we will be looking at Matthew chapters 23 to 28. The running count of verses will continue from the last video. Matthew 23:38 is about Jesus' lament at how Jerusalem would not accept him as Christ. It reads, "Behold, your house is left unto you desolate." This is a quotation from Jeremiah 22, verse 5. The Masoretic reads, "This house shall become a desolation." The Septuagint reads, "This house shall be brought to desolation." This is not a direct quotation. For example, Jesus is speaking to Jerusalem, which is why he says, "your house," instead of "this house." Secondly, the wording of the Masoretic and Septuagint is the same, saying that this is what their house will be. Jesus uses a different verb, saying that their house will be left. In the end, because the Masoretic and Septuagint agree, Jesus follows both. The next verse, Matthew 23:39, is also part of Jesus' lament. It reads, "You shall not see me henceforth, till you shall say, Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord." This is a quotation from Psalm 118:26. The Masoretic reads, "Blessed be he that comes in the name of Jehovah." In the Septuagint, Psalm 117, verse 26 reads, "Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord." All readings agree, Jesus follows both. Matthew 24:15 is about Jesus' prophecies about the destruction of the temple. It reads, "When therefore you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place." This is a quotation from Daniel 11:31 and 12:11. The Masoretic reads, "And they shall set up the abomination that makes desolate, and the abomination that makes desolate." The Septuagint reads, "And make the abomination desolate, the abomination of desolation shall be." In the Septuagint at Daniel 11:31, there is a different word than desolation. It is destruction. So with the exception of Daniel 11:31, which is different from the other four verses, these are saying the same thing. Jesus follows both. Matthew 24:30 is Jesus' and Daniel's prophecy about Christ's second coming. It reads, "And they shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." This is a quotation from Daniel 7:13. The Masoretic reads, "There came with the clouds of heaven one like unto a son of man." The Septuagint reads, "One coming with the clouds of heaven as the Son of Man." It may not appear to be the case in these modern English translations, but the Masoretic and Septuagint say the very same thing. Jesus says the same thing in Matthew, but with a different order to the words. Jesus follows both. Matthew 26:31 is about Jesus telling the disciples that they will run away when he is arrested. It reads, "Then said Jesus unto them, All of you shall be offended in me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad." This is a quotation from Zechariah 13:7. The Masoretic reads, "Said Jehovah of hosts, Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn my hand upon the little ones." The Septuagint reads, "Said the Lord Almighty, Smite the shepherds, and draw out the sheep, and I will bring mine hand upon the little ones." The verb used on how the sheep will disperse is the same in all readings. Then there is the obvious difference between the Masoretic's Jehovah of hosts and the Septuagint's Lord Almighty. It is too bad that Jesus didn't quote that part. The only real difference is that the Septuagint says shepherds, plural. Because of that, Jesus follows the Masoretic. Matthew 26:64 is about when Jesus is being questioned by the high priest. When the high priest questions whether he is the Christ, it reads, "Jesus said unto him, You have said it. Nevertheless, I say to you, henceforth you shall see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, and coming on the clouds of heaven. We have already seen that this is a quotation from Daniel 7:13. The Masoretic reads, "There came with the clouds of heaven one like unto a son of man." The Septuagint reads, "One coming with the clouds of heaven as the Son of Man." In the earlier verse, Jesus added, "with power and great glory." Here, Jesus adds, "sitting at the right hand of power," which is a reference to Psalm 110, verse 1. Other than those additional statements, Jesus is using the same words. Jesus follows both. Matthew 27, 9 and 10 is about what the chief priests did with the money that Judas threw back. It reads, "Then was fulfilled that which was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was priced, whom certain of the children of Israel did price, and they gave them to the potter's field, as the Lord appointed me." According to Matthew, this is a quotation from Jeremiah, but this is not found anywhere in the book of Jeremiah. There is something similar found in Zechariah 11:13. The Masoretic reads, "And Jehovah said unto me, Cast it unto the potter, the goodly price that I was prized at by them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver, and cast them unto the potter in the house of Jehovah." The Septuagint reads, "And the Lord said to me, Drop them into the furnace, and I will see if it is good metal, as I was proved for their sakes. And I took the 30 pieces of silver, and cast them into the furnace in the house of the Lord." First, it is obvious that Matthew is not giving a direct quotation. Actually, it appears to be an extremely loose quotation. It is possible that Matthew is not trying to quote it, but to make reference to it. Matthew 27, 9 and 10 seems to apply directly and only to Jesus, while Zechariah 11:13 seems to apply directly and only to Zechariah. In other words, Matthew may not be trying to quote from Zechariah, but he is trying to parallel Jesus to Zechariah. In fact, Matthew did the same thing earlier, in a verse that this video skipped. A chapter before this, Matthew 26:15 reads, "Judas said, What are you willing to give me, and I deliver him unto you? And they weighed unto him 30 pieces of silver." This has a connection to the previous verse in Zechariah. It reads, "I said unto them, If you think good, give me my hire, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my hire 30 pieces of silver." There is no difference between the Masoretic and Septuagint regarding Zechariah 11:12. But Matthew does the same thing here. He is not quoting, he is making reference. More specifically, Matthew is paralleling these stories. Because Matthew is not quoting, these verses are not good candidates when it comes to comparing the Masoretic and the Septuagint, so these verses will be ignored. But before leaving, we should address one more thing. Matthew says that this was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet. As already said, this business with 30 pieces of silver in the potter's field is not found in Jeremiah. Instead, we find it in Zechariah. Are we able to investigate this further? As is the purpose of this channel, let's look to the pre-nicene Christians to see if they said anything about Matthew 27:9 and it saying Jeremiah. Beyond any doubt, they would have known that this quotation doesn't come from Jeremiah, but from Zechariah. And they would have said something about it, as they did with other verses which seemed to have a problem. Matthew 27:9 is quoted twice by the pre-nicene Christians. We will start with the second quotation, which comes from the Apostolic Constitutions. Unfortunately, that quotation starts with the passage from Zechariah. It does not quote the part from Matthew about being fulfilled by what was spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. In short, the quotation in the Apostolic Constitutions doesn't refer to Jeremiah at all. The first quotation is from Tatian's Diatessaron, which is his compilation of all four Gospels into one coherent Gospel. He compiled it around the year AD 170. For more information on the Diatessaron, please see the video. It reads, "Therein was fulfilled the saying in the prophet, which said, I took 30 pieces of money, the price of the precious one, which was fixed by the children of Israel, and I paid them for the plane of the potter, as the Lord commanded me." Notice how the verse read in Tatian's day. It doesn't mention the prophet's name at all. So the first possible answer, which is suggested by the Diatessaron, is that Matthew's original gospel never contained the name of the prophet here. Could the name Jeremiah have been added later? The earliest complete copies of the New Testament are Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus, which are dated to the middle 300s. Both of these show Jeremiah's name. So if the idea is true that the name Jeremiah was added, it would have been added after the Diatessaron and before Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, that is, between AD 170 and AD 350. Speaking personally, this appears to be the best explanation of why our Bibles mistakenly attribute this quotation to Jeremiah instead of the accurate prophet Zechariah. There is another reason why this explanation is best. In the 2nd century, around the time of Tatian, the Old and New Testaments were translated into Aramaic, which is today called the Aramaic Peshitta. In the Peshitta, the name Jeremiah does not appear, just like in Tatian's Diatessaron. So the Peshitta is another witness that Jeremiah does not appear in Matthew's original gospel. At this point, we have spent a lot of time away from comparing the Masoretic and Septuagint, so let's continue. Matthew 27:35 is about the soldiers casting lots for Jesus' clothes while he hung on the cross. This quotation may not appear in your Bibles because it is not found in all New Testament manuscripts. It reads, "And they crucified him, and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots." This is a quotation from Psalm 22:18. The Masoretic reads, "They part my garments among them, and upon my vesture do they cast lots." The Septuagint reads, "They parted my garments among themselves, and cast lots upon my raiment." All readings agree. Matthew follows both. Matthew 27:46 is about when Jesus was on the cross and shouted in a mixture of Hebrew and Aramaic. It reads, "And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This is a quotation from Psalm 22:1. The Masoretic reads, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, and from the words of my groaning?" In the Septuagint, Psalm 21:2 reads, my God, attend to me. Why have you forsaken me?" Let's first take a look at the Masoretic. Here Jesus' first two words are in Hebrew, but his other words, lama sabachthani, are not Hebrew but Aramaic. Based on the definitions of these Hebrew and Aramaic words, it is obvious that Jesus is directly quoting from Psalm 22:1. Though Jesus is speaking in Aramaic, he is speaking the Masoretic equivalent. The Septuagint has an additional phrase, attend to me, which doesn't appear in Matthew, nor in the Masoretic, nor in the Aramaic. Therefore, because Jesus didn't say those words, he follows the Masoretic. That is enough for now. Thus far, we have finished looking at Matthew and have analyzed 50 verses. Here is a pie chart showing the verse breakdown in Matthew. When this video series began, it was said that, of the verses that did not follow the Septuagint and the Masoretic, 9 times out of 10, the verses would favor the Septuagint. As you can see here, this is not the case with Matthew. There are 2 reasons for this. First, we have a whole lot more New Testament to compare. And the New Testament author that showed the differences between the Septuagint and Masoretic the most was Paul. His quotations are the most telling as to which Old Testament manuscripts he used. Second, according to the pre-nicene Christians, Matthew originally wrote his gospel in either Aramaic or Hebrew. Soon after that, it was translated into Greek. If that is the case, That is a good reason why Matthew would have used the Hebrew Masoretic more often. It was the same language as his original autograph. Of course, even considering this background about the Gospel of Matthew, it favored the Septuagint a little bit more often than the Masoretic. In August, we will move on to the Gospel of Mark as we continue looking at New Testament quotations from the Old Testament. Blessings and so forth.